SAP had their earnings on the week. SAP is up 1%. Didn't get a whole lot of action based on their earnings, but I like to view this as rinse and repeat, right? If I look at the past 2 or 3 quarters, it was we crushed it on cloud. We've got all this AI goodness coming out. And I'm not saying there wasn't something new, but it was pretty darn consistent, right? Cloud was up 25% year over year. While revenue growth was up still 10% year on year is pretty darn good, Dan. I particularly when it comes to these types of software only companies. There were some people that dinged it on profitability, but there's a lot of restructuring charges going on. And unlike the United States, SAP has what's called IFRS, which is harder to get credit for your write-offs. Like in the U.S. stock markets, you can basically bury it, right? It goes below the line. It's an extraordinary expense, but in IRFS land, it is not. One thing I've been impressed with, shockingly, not shocking. That's a bad thing to say. Was just how impressive their AI examples and use cases and customers. Like there are real customers using AI across the portfolio, and there are a lot of them. And the add-on for AI is in a deep double digits when it comes to all of the major deals that go in there. Net, SAP was late to cloud, and it's making up for it in spades, given the gigantic growth numbers. I mean, 25% year-on-year growth in cloud, right? That's been very consistent. ERP suite up 33%. And I do not think that they showed up late to the party with AI, but they need to get everybody on the new base of code in order to take advantage of that. And that is their big challenge, getting them to the clean core and then initiating AI. And it's funny, I've heard so much feedback on how hard it is to access the data inside of SAP to activate, right? That's when you're doing it yourself. But it seems like they've got more and more customers every day leveraging SAP to do AI with Joule.
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot of ground, Pat. I think they're hitting the right growth in the right areas, right? Where do you want to see growth? You mean the core business is fairly well established. The risk factor of the company is the porting over from core prem-based to cloud. It's because the situation with the way SAP works is that porting does open up the door for people to migrate off of SAP. They've done a lot to invest in systems and services and like things like Rise, where they're trying to enable companies to move from older to newer. They're going to ask people to simplify instantiations because there's so much customization. The customization was always a bit of a lockdown for how quickly someone could move and port. And having to go to the cloud kind of was a bit of a reset, but at the same time, that's a reset that a company like SAP needed. But at 27% cloud revenue growth in the quarter, that's good. That's almost as much as Azure growth of cloud, right? That's not a bad number. Backlog of cloud, 40% growth over the year. Great. I mean, you're talking about SAP here. We're not talking. We're not talking about
exactly.
You've got the current in the quarter. You saw 29%, Pat. You saw cloud revenue for the full year grow up by 25%. These are all really encouraging numbers. I mean, this is not something to look down about. This is saying that the work Christian and his team are doing is going in the right direction. They're locking in customers. They're moving them to recurring. They're putting them into the cloud. If they can do those things effectively, they can get to AI and get to start monetizing the inference stuff I talked about throughout this entire conversation, Pat. So look, it was a good quarter. SAP is a player. They're in the space, and this migration from kind of the first network effects of infrastructure to the platform and software and services layer is a big opportunity for the company. And like I said, a company of its maturity, so look at it against the Oracles, look at it against Salesforces, look at it against IBMs, look at it against ServiceNows. It's in double-digit growth. So it's right in that sort of, it's right in the range, meaning it's not going to grow as fast as kind of a high, fast rule of 54 company like ServiceNow, but it's growing just about as fast as Salesforce. And, so just remember that. So it's in the game, seems to be on the right trajectory.